Yep.
Well, guys,
what'd you break this time?
well, hey there, hobby homesteaders. Welcome back to Peaks Peak. On today's video, I was working on my tractor because something broke. I got started, got ready to take stuff apart, and I thought, oh yeah, I've got a YouTube channel. I probably ought to be filming this. And you guys are gonna wanna see what I broke, because I don't think it's very common. I've had the mower deck on it for the last couple of weeks and haven't had any implements on my 3-point hitch. But I noticed when I was mowing that my PTO engagement lever was kind of hanging up before it got back to the home position. So every time I get on the tractor to start it, I'd have to pull back on that lever to get it in position so that the tractor would start and it would engage that safety switch. So I knew something wasn't quite right. Well, I went to hook my box blade up tonight and I found a pretty major issue. So if you see the 3-point arm there where it fits on that spline shaft, and then you see the part that goes down to attach to the mower deck raising and lowering mechanism, you can see there's a great big crack. I don't know how it happened or when it happened, but it's finally gotten bad enough to where this arm is bent in and interfering with the engagement of my PTO, and that's how I found the crack. We're gonna take that 3-point arm off. I'm sure it would be covered by insurance or whatever, but I don't want to fool with that. I figure I can fix it easy enough. And honestly, it's probably something I did, you know, getting the mower deck in a bind or something like that. Who knows? But we'll get in there and see how major it is before we make a decision.
Yep.
Well, guys,
What'd you break this time?
one of them. All right, well, the guys at Davis Equipment fixed me up. They gave me a hard time, but they also explained to me what probably caused our problem. So I'll explain that to you a little bit later. But picked up our new parts. And one thing we talked about while we were there is that Kubota did an update on these 3-point lift arms for the mid-mount mower at some point close to the time that the 2019 model was made. Now, they were thinking that I should have had the updated arms on mine, but after getting this replacement in my hands and comparing it to the broken one, I'm pretty sure mine must be the old model because it is not as heavy duty and it's shaped just a little bit different. We're gonna go ahead and put this on there and make sure everything lines up right, and then we'll talk about what caused this arm to crack like it did. You know, initially I had some concern that I had caused this by running my 3-point post auger, or they were teasing me about my 6-foot tiller, which is not 6 foot, it's 5 foot, but it's a little bit big for the BX, and I run it on there and it beats the snot out of the machine. But I thought maybe I caused it by some of that equipment. But where it failed is solely on the mid-mount mower side. That had me puzzled, but they had a pretty good explanation as to why it would crack like this. So we're gonna jump back in time and I will show you the removal of the old arm, and then we'll get ready to get this new one installed. We've got to get that snap ring off of there. Shouldn't be too bad. And then we'll see about getting that arm out.
Now once you've removed that snap ring, then you want to take this top plate that your seat sits on off. That'll get you a little bit of clearance. And the other trick to this is you pull on the right side 3-point lift arm and it'll pull that spline shaft through the center. And that's what's going to give you enough clearance to get that left side lift arm out.
Now, I'm not always big on wearing gloves while I'm a mechanic because I just tear through them, not to mention, man, whoever bought these gloves, they must have baby hands because I got my hands in them, but they're just about to blow out already. I'm just getting started. But the reason I have on gloves is because the Kubota tech, Rob over there, gave me a suggestion and I thought it was a great idea. He said, when you put these back on, coat it in anti-seize because You don't want this froze up on the splines of that shaft if you have to go to replace it again or work on something else. So, you know how this stuff is, man. Anytime you use it, you're gonna look like the Tin Man. So, I decided I'd throw on some gloves while I do this part of it. Now, maybe I can keep it off of everything else. We'll see. That should be plenty enough to make a fine mess. Now, go in here, and now, she gets a little tight, right there, but we'll get her. Oh, piece of cake. Now we gotta line these arms up appropriately. I think that's it right there. Now, there's what we're talking about right there. Call me the Tin Man. Now I can't touch the camera until I take my gloves off. We're in position, so I'm gonna take my rag, wipe the rest of this off, so that I'll be ready to put my split ring back on. All right, so we got our 3-point arms lined up on the same level, and so those are ready to go. And now we got to put our split ring back on, and then we'll be ready to put the linkage back up and should be back in business. I wish somebody made a good set of snap ring pliers, because I went in search of a set and I paid like 40 bucks for these channel locks with the interchangeable tips, and had the tips broke off of the first set like in a day. And these ends flex, they're not strong enough to pull off good snap rings. So what should have been a very, very simple job was made much harder because this tool sucks. So if you've got a suggestion for the best set of snap ring pliers or snap ring plier set that you can buy, leave that down in the comments because I want them. Now, get her snapped on good. And I should have left my gloves on because look at that. Tin Man already. All right, now getting this split ring in that slot, it's a little bit tough. We want to make sure we get it seated good. So put a screwdriver in the slot so that we can push back. And once you've got it seated, you'll know, because the two holes in the split ring get close together. There's about an 1/8 of an inch between the two. Let's see if I can get you an angle where you can see it. You might be able to see it from this angle. Next, put this plate back on so our seat rides on. Okay, now here's our first little trick, because this bolt, if you don't remember to put it in before you put the arm on, it'll only go in this one spot right here. So you got to stick it through this hole in the frame, and if you have your arm lowered all the way down, you can just raise it up by hand like that, get your bolt in position, and then you're ready. Put this up here where it goes, and we'll get ready to make our adjustments on this. On this linkage, you got the big fat washer. Now remember, this can't be over tightened because you've got to have enough room or enough slack for this washer to be able to slide in this to raise it up and down. Get a wrench that'll hold our jam nut and then tighten this down. And we got our adjustment set on that right there so that we can lock our mid-mount mower into the top position when we need to. That brings me to why this happened in the first place. All right, guys, well, we got it all put back together, and I'm pretty happy overall with how all this went, because it's a super easy fix. So if you happen to crack your 3-point lift arm, don't be afraid of it. It's something you can handle. And, you know, parts, a couple $100 at the dealer, not something you want to have to do. But here's where I get to what caused this. I talked to the dealer about it because obviously all of the stress has to be coming from something in the mid-mount mower part of the operation. And what the guys over at Davis explained to me is you got a several 100-pound mower deck bouncing up and down on all of that linkage. So if you're running around with your mower deck on quite a bit over rough terrain, driving fast, and it's beating and banging around, that's going to put a lot of extra stress onto those 3-point lift arms. That's where you run into problem. That makes perfect sense to me because of how I use this tractor. I quite often take my mid-mount mower and I go up on the hill and I mow around the pond and do things like that. So when I'm going up and down that hill, it's rough and I don't show it any mercy. I'm moving when I go up and down the hill. So it's beating and banging around, and you know, it's a tractor. It doesn't ride smooth. So I feel like this is something I kind of brought on myself by being a little bit rough with it. But also, I think they've updated the design on those 3-point lift arms to where that's probably not going to be an issue for the newer models anyway. I appreciate the guys over at Davis for giving me just a little bit of advice, because learning that that shaft that the 3-point arms ride on, the shaft with the splines, will slide over, made it to where it was super easy to take this apart myself. And they even offered to get me in the same day if I needed them to repair it. They said, if you want us to do it, just throw it on the trailer, bring it to us, we'll knock it out real quick. But this is something that I wanted to do because I wanted to be able to share with you how simple the fix was and that it's not necessarily something to be afraid of. But I appreciate the guys over at Davis Equipment for taking good care of us, and I appreciate you for watching. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Y'all have a good day.